Sometime in the next few weeks, you'll scrape a windshield in the dark or shovel a driveway your back has opinions about, and a thought will cross your mind. People live in places where this never happens. This video is those places. 20 warm towns across the American South and Southwest where winter simply never shows up, where January afternoons run in the 60s and 70s, where snow is a rumor and a furnace is optional equipment. And these aren't the famous names, not the brochure coasts with brochure prices. Every town here was chosen for a real identity, a real hospital answer, and a home price pulled fresh from Zillow this week, most of them between $130,000 and $300,000. We're counting all 20 down to number 1, a city that holds an actual Guinness World Record that makes it, by measurement, the single best place on Earth to never meet winter again. Bring your ice scraper, you'll want to throw it away somewhere warm. We start in Florida at the most expensive stop on the whole list, on purpose. Let's open at the ceiling, the priciest town on this countdown, because if the warm winter math works here, everything below it is a discount. Mount Dora sits on a chain of lakes in the hills northwest of Orlando, and calling it hills is not a Florida joke. The town actually rolls. Oak canopies over brick streets, a 19th century downtown of bookshops and cafes sloping down to Lake Dora, and a lighthouse, a real working one on a freshwater lake, one of the few inland freshwater lighthouses in America. The town's whole personality is the calendar. The Mount Dora Arts Festival each February ranks among the biggest outdoor art shows in the Southeast and fills the streets with 250,000 visitors during what the rest of the country calls the dead of winter. The sailing regatta has run since 1953. The Christmas season lights the entire downtown with a couple million bulbs, and seaplanes take off from the lake like it's 1935. You can ride one over the chain of lakes and land back at the dock before lunch. January afternoons here average right around 72 degrees, which is why February hosts art festivals instead of ice storms. Zillow has a typical home at $383,000, essentially flat this year and going pending in about 2 weeks, demand with a pulse. Advent Health Waterman, a full hospital, sits 10 minutes away in neighboring Tavares, with Orlando's medical giants 45 minutes southeast. The town's antique road deserves its own morning. Renninger's, one of the biggest antique and flea markets in the Southeast, sprawls just up the highway with extravaganza weekends that draw dealers from across the country, and the Mount Dora Museum of Speed keeps polished classic cars for the gearhead grandfathers. Trolley tours loop the historic district daily, and the lakeside boardwalk at Palm Island threads through cypress and herons 5 minutes from the shops. Even the grass gets festivals here. The annual craft fairs and the February art weekend bookend a calendar that treats every month like the season. The Honest Ledger. Festival weekends hand your parking spot to tourists. Summer is a 5-month Florida sauna, and that price is the Countdown Summit. What it buys is the rare Florida town with hills, history, and a lighthouse, where winter is a season everything happens. The ceiling holds. 19 towns of downhill from here. Cross the causeway north out of New Orleans, 24 miles of bridge over open water, the longest continuous span over water on the planet, and you land in a different Louisiana, the North Shore. Piney, oak-shaded, higher and drier, and its heart is Covington, a river town founded in 1813 where 3 small rivers braid together under the live oaks. The old downtown wears its age beautifully. Brick storefronts and galleries along Boston Street and Lee Lane, a courthouse square, patio restaurants under Spanish moss, and a food of art scene that punches like a city because half of New Orleans' talent quietly lives over here. The connection machinery runs all year. The Three Rivers Art Festival takes over downtown each November, the Covington Farmers Market fills Saturday mornings, and the St. Tammany Trace, a 31-mile paved rail trail, rolls right through town, which means your morning bike ride can reach 4 other towns without meeting a single car. The town also keeps a genuinely odd civic treasure. The H.J. Smith & Sons General Store and Museum has been selling and collecting on the same corner since 1876. Hand-dug well and a Civil War-era submarine replica included, the kind of place where the inventory comes with narration, and the Covington Trailhead Amphitheater beside the Trace hosts free concerts and markets through the mild months. January afternoons average in the low 60s with camellias blooming, the kind of winter where a sweater is a fashion choice, not survival gear. Zillow has a typical Covington home at $327,000, flat over the past year, and the healthcare answer is genuinely strong. St. Tammany Health System operates its full hospital campus right in town, with Ochsner's North Shore facilities minutes away, and the full New Orleans Medical District across the bridge. The honest paragraph, this is still the Gulf South. Hurricane season is a real planning item even this far off the beach. Summer humidity is biblical, and North Shore popularity has been nudging prices upward for 2 decades. What you get is New Orleans culture at bicycle pace, under oaks, in January sunshine, 40 minutes from the best hospitals and worst decisions in Louisiana. At the foot of this town's oak-lined waterfront street, a ferry leaves to dock, and 30 of the strangest, most beautiful minutes in Georgia later, it lands you on Cumberland Island. 17 miles of wild national seashore where feral horses walk empty beaches past the ruins of a Carnegie mansion. No cars, no shops, just dunes and live oaks and 150 or so horses that answer to nobody. St. Mary's is the only gateway, which makes this little riverfront town of 19,000 the keeper of one of the last genuinely wild places on the Atlantic coast. And the town itself matches the assignment, one of the oldest settlements in the country, a walkable historic district of 1800s cottages, a waterfront pavilion where people bring coffee to watch shrimp boats and submarine wakes. Because yes, the other neighbor is Naval Submarine Base Kings Bay. And the St. Mary's Submarine Museum downtown lets you work a real periscope over the river. January afternoons run around 64 degrees, mild enough that the rocking chairs along the waterfront never go into storage. The calendar keeps its own tide chart. The St. Mary's Seafood Festival each fall closes the waterfront for shrimp and music. 4th of July fireworks launch over the river with the crowd on blankets at the pavilion, and the Christmas season brings an illuminated boat parade drifting past the docks, small-town pageantry with a saltwater accent. Zillow has a typical home at $314,000, dead flat over the past year, a coastal address at an inland price. And a quick boarding call before we keep moving. Subscribing to this channel works like the Cumberland Ferry. One small step and it keeps delivering you somewhere better every single week. Except my ferry is free. The honest tide chart. There's no full hospital inside St. Mary's. The small Camden Medical Campus handles the everyday, and Jacksonville's big systems sit about 40 minutes south. Hurricane awareness is part of coastal Georgia life, and summer brings gnats with opinions. The trade is a front porch to a wild island, in a town where winter means 64 degrees and a lighter jacket on the ferry deck. And the horses, for the record, do occasionally wander down the island beach right past the ferry landing, which makes an ordinary Tuesday crossing feel like a safari. Every November, the rarest big bird in North America flies 5,000 kilometers from Canada and lands outside Rockport, Texas. Whooping cranes, 5 feet tall, snow white, once down to 15 individuals on the entire planet. And the marshes of the Aransas Refuge next door are the only place on Earth their last natural flock spends the winter. Retirees here do something almost nobody else in America can. They charter a morning boat in January, shirt-sleeve weather, and watch the most endangered crane on the planet hunt blue crabs. That's the Rockport deal in one image. This coastal village of 10,000 has been the artist town of the Texas coast for generations. The Rockport Center for the Arts anchors a real gallery scene. The annual art festival has run for over 50 years, and Rockport Beach holds the distinction of being Texas's first Blue Wave certified beach, a calm, clean crescent on Aransas Bay where the water barely ripples. January afternoons average around 64 degrees, and the bay does the entertaining. Redfish and speckled trout year-round, shrimp boats unloading at Fulton Harbor, and the famous Big Tree, a live oak that's been standing over 1,000 years through every hurricane the Gulf ever threw. Which brings up the honest chapter. Hurricane Harvey came ashore almost exactly here in 2017. The town rebuilt with stubborn Texas patience, and windstorm insurance on this coast is a real number you quote before falling in love. Zillow has a typical home at $309,000, down 4.9% over the past year, the steepest discount on this countdown, a soft market handing buyers the pen. There's no full hospital in town. Corpus Christi's major systems sit about 35 minutes down the causeway. That drive is part of the deal. The seafood culture softens most complaints. Fulton's harborside restaurants serve shrimp that came off boats you watched dock. The Maritime Museum keeps the coast boat-building story, and the annual Hummingbird celebration each September fills yards with thousands of migrating hummingbirds and the birders who chase them, a second feathered festival for a town that runs on wings. What you get back is a working art colony on a quiet bay where the winter guests are 5 feet tall and world famous. Demo days at the Arts Center put working painters in front of easels you can watch, and the bay's sailing club races most fair weekends. White sails on flat water from any bench on the shoreline. Retirement riddle. How do you live 10 minutes from the sugar white sand of Gulf Shores without paying Gulf Shores prices or boarding up for every storm surge? The answer has a name, and most beach shoppers drive straight through it. Foley sits just inland of Alabama's beaches, close enough that the seafood is the same and the sunsets cost nothing, far enough that Zillow has the typical home at $305,000, down 2% this year, while the beach towns south of it trade far higher, and flood maps relax noticeably with every mile of elevation. The town itself is no parking lot. Downtown Foley keeps a 1909 railroad depot museum with a model train exhibit that grandkids treat like a pilgrimage site. Heritage Park hosts concerts under the oaks, and the Antique District pulls Saturday browsers from 3 states. Then there's the flock. Every winter, tens of thousands of snowbirds migrate into Baldwin County, and Foley is their unofficial capital, which means January here isn't the quiet season, it's the social season. Pickleball leagues, church suppers, market days, all running at full speed while the north freezes. January afternoons average around 61 degrees, and the Gulf keeps the nights honest instead of icy. The practical file runs deep. South Baldwin Regional Medical Center is a full hospital right in town. The Foley Sports Tourism Complex keeps event calendars humming, and OWA, the amusement and entertainment district on the edge of town, means the great-grandkids have a roller coaster 15 minutes from your porch. Tanger's Outlet Mall handles the retail therapy without a mobile drive. The Graham Creek Nature Preserve spreads 500 acres of trails and disc golf on the town's edge, and the local institution, Lambert's Cafe, the home of throwed rolls, remains the single most requested grandkid dinner in Baldwin County. Catch the bread or wear it. The honest lines: hurricane season is a Gulf Coast fact even 10 miles inland. Summer humidity earns its reputation, and beach traffic clogs the highway through town every June weekend. The trade is the entire Gulf Coast lifestyle, sand included, at the inland discount, with a hospital between you and the beach. Bon Secours National Wildlife Refuge holds the undeveloped stretch of that coast 20 minutes south. Dunes and sea turtles and not one condo. The beach as the maps first drew it. There's a museum in this town where the star attraction is a half-alligator, half-dog creature called a dog-gator, displayed with complete sincerity next to a paint-by-numbers collection and a shrine made of thousands of pot lids. The Abita Mystery House is one of the great roadside attractions in America, and the fact that Abita Springs shelters it tells you everything about this little town's soul. A century ago, this was a spa town. New Orleanians rode the train across the lake to drink the artesian water that supposedly cured whatever ailed them, and the pavilion over the springs still stands in the town park like a Victorian bandstand. The water found a second career. Abita Brewing, one of the South's pioneering craft breweries, built its empire on that same artesian source, and the tap room on the edge of town functions as the region's friendliest common room. The brewery's tours run daily, with tastings under the big copper kettles, and the Abita Brew Pub in the town center, the company's original home, pours the experimental batches that never leave the parish, which gives this village of 2,700 two separate beer destinations and precisely 0 traffic lights between them. The town of about 2,700 wraps around a walkable center. The Abita Springs Opry stages old-timey Louisiana roots music several times a year in the historic town hall. A farmer's market runs Sundays, and the 31-mile Tammany Trace Rail Trail passes directly through, connecting your bicycle to Covington one town over, which you'll remember from 4 entries ago. Same oaks, same trail, smaller mailbox. January afternoons average in the low 60s, porch weather with camellias. Zillow has the typical home at $291,000, essentially flat this year. No hospital in the village itself. St. Tammany's full campus in Covington sits 10 minutes west, close enough to share a trail with. Honest notes, it's tiny. Hurricane season applies, and if quirk isn't your flavor, the doggy gator will not grow on you. For everyone else, this is the warmest, weird little town in the south, artesian water included. The whole village is a designated historic district, cottages under the pines from the resort era, and the push and pedal parade each spring rolls decorated bikes and wagons past the pavilion like a Norman Rockwell fever dream. The second largest freshwater lake living entirely inside the lower 48 states sits in the middle of Florida, 730 square miles of it. So big, the far shore drops below the horizon like an ocean, and the town that shares its name runs the North Shore. Okeechobee is old Florida with spurs on. This is cattle country, working ranches, a rodeo tradition running since the 1940s, and a downtown where the feed store still outranks the boutique. But the reason it lands on this list is what happens every January. Winter is high season here because the speckled perch run peaks in the cold months, and this town literally calls itself the speckled perch capital of the world. There was a festival about it every March and fills with snowbird anglers who know that the best crappie fishing in America happens in shirt-sleeve weather, while their old driveways ice over. The Herbert Hoover Dike rings the lake, and the paved scenic trail along its top gives walkers and cyclists 100+ miles of elevated views over water and sawgrass. Sunrise from the dike is the town's free daily show. The birding runs world-class without the fame. Swallow-tailed kites and catacatas work the ranch land, the lake's marshes hold everything from snail kites to spoonbills, and airboat outfitters run winter tours through country most Floridians have never seen. Kissimmee Prairie Preserve, the darkest official sky in Florida, sits 40 minutes north for stargazing the cities gave up on. January afternoons average around 72 degrees, genuine, endless summer territory. Zillow has the typical home at $290,000, flat over the past year, and HCA Florida Rowlerson Hospital operates right in town. The real thing, emergency room and all. And a quick cast before we keep going. Subscribing to this channel works like spec fishing in January. 30 seconds of effort, steady rewards all winter, and you can do it sitting down. The honest tackle box. Summer on the big lake is hot, buggy, and humble. Hurricane season is a real planning item in lake country, and this is a boots and bait shop town. If you need a wine bar, look 4 entries back. For the angler who's been promising themselves January on the water, this is the water. The top of the Lake Rodeo Arena and the Ag Calendar keep the cowboy side honest, and the annual Cattlemen's Rodeo still opens with mounted flag riders at full gallop, a reminder of which Florida you're actually in. Every winter, one small Florida town hosts the gentlest migration in America. When the Gulf turns cold, hundreds of manatees, wild ones, the size of small cars and the temperament of large pillows, swim into Kings Bay at Crystal River, because 70+ natural springs hold the water at 72 degrees, no matter what the calendar says, and the manatees know it. This is the manatee capital of the world, the only place in the United States where you can legally swim alongside them, and the season for it is winter, peak gathering in January, which means this town's entire superstar act happens in the exact months the rest of the country spends indoors. The Three Sisters Boardwalk lets you watch dozens of them drift below you in water so clear it looks photoshopped. Kayaks launch from downtown, and dive shops run morning snorkel tours, where retirees in wetsuits float politely among giants. The town itself stays small and walkable, about 3,500 people, a fishing village downtown of seafood shacks and outfitters, pre-Columbian temple mounds at the State Archaeological Park on the edge of town, and scalloping season flipping the calendar's other half into a summer treasure hunt. 9 miles south, the Homosassa Springs Wildlife State Park keeps rescued manatees, a hippo named Lou who became an honorary Florida citizen by governor's decree, and an underwater observatory locals call the Fishbowl, which handles the Grand Kid itinerary for a full day at state park prices. January afternoons run right around 70 degrees, spring water included. Zillow has the typical home at $286,000, essentially flat this year, and HCA Florida Seven Rivers Hospital sits minutes away, a full hospital for a town this size. Quiet gold. The honest snorkel. Manatee season brings tour crowds to a small bay, coastal insurance is a Florida line item you quote early, and summer is a wet sauna. The trade is a winter spent floating with sea cows in Bathwater Springs. Nowhere else in America can even make the offer. The Florida Manatee Festival each January closes downtown for 2 days of tours, food, and music, timed precisely to the peak gathering. Winter as the headline act. Sidney Lanier stood at the edge of this town in the 1870s and wrote a poem about the view, the marshes of Glen, golden grass running to the horizon, and the view hasn't changed. The marshes still burn gold at sunset along the causeway. Brunswick is the mainland gateway to Georgia's Golden Isles, St. Simons, Jekyll, Sea Island, all a few minutes over the water, which means a retiree here holds beach access to some of the prettiest barrier islands on the Atlantic. Driftwood Beach on Jekyll looks like Sculpture Garden by Shipwreck without paying a single island price. The town itself is the sleeper. Old Town Brunswick was laid out in 1771 on the same square grid plan as Savannah, and the historic district still runs on those squares. Victorian houses under live oaks, a revived Newcastle street of galleries and restaurants, and a working shrimp fleet unloading at the docks. This is one of the last real shrimping towns on the coast, and the town will inform you, politely but firmly, that Brunswick stew was invented here and Virginia is mistaken. January afternoons average around 63 degrees, camellia weather. Zillow has a typical home at $257,000, down about 1% this year, an absurd number for square grid history 10 minutes from an island beach. Southeast Georgia Health System operates its full regional campus right in town. The calendar pulls its weight too. First Friday events fill Newcastle Street monthly with music and open galleries. The Brunswick Rock and Stewbally each fall settles the stew argument with a cook-off and a festival. And Mary Ross Waterfront Park hosts concerts where the shrimp fleet provides the backdrop and the sunset provides the lighting. The honest marsh. Brunswick is a working port city. The industrial side and the paper mill are part of the skyline and occasionally the breeze. Some blocks are still waiting their restoration turn, and hurricane awareness comes with the coast. What the discount buys is Savannah's little sister with a shrimp boat, a poem, and a beach commute measured in minutes. At the College Card quietly too. The coastal college campus keeps classes and events running in town, and Jekyll Island's historic club district, croquet lawns and all, sits 20 minutes away for the days you want to time travel. On the fourth Saturday of every month, before the sun is properly up, dealers start unfolding tables down Oak Street in Arcadia. And by 9, the whole historic district is one open-air antique market, a tradition that's made this cattle town of 8,000 the acknowledged antique capital of Florida. 50-some dealers in the brick storefront on a normal day, hundreds of tables on Fair Saturday. The buildings holding all that history earned it the hard way. Downtown burned in 1905 and rebuilt in brick and Mediterranean revival, and the whole district now sits on the National Register. The other tradition is louder. The Arcadia All-Florida Championship Rodeo has run since 1929, the oldest rodeo in the state, and when it fires up each March, the cattlemen remind everyone that DeSoto County was cowboy country a century before Disney drew a mouse. Then there's the strangest manatee on this list. The Peace River drifts past town T-dark and shallow, and its bed is packed with fossils. Retirees kayak it with kitchen strainers and come home with prehistoric shark teeth, actual megalodon fragments. The county even celebrates it. January afternoons average around 74 degrees, the warmest reading so far on this countdown. Genuine interior Florida endless summer. Watermelon season brings its own festival, crowning a queen since 1967. The rodeo arena hosts youth and ranch events between the big March and fall shows. And Solomon's Castle, an actual castle built of printing plates by an eccentric sculptor, glitters in the swamp 20 minutes east, complete with a restaurant in a replica Spanish galleon, because this corner of Florida refuses to be ordinary. Zillow has the typical home at $246,000, down about 1% this year. And DeSoto Memorial Hospital operates right in town. The honest saddle, hurricanes have found this town twice in living memory. Charlie in 2004 and Ian in 2022 both left marks, and the rebuilding grit shows. Summer is long, and nightlife is a rodeo and a diner. What's left is the cheapest 74-degree January in Florida with a megalodon tooth in your pocket. The Turner Agri-Civic Center books concerts and events that towns triple this size would envy. Rodeo weekends fill the motels, and the drive home passes orange groves either direction. The town motto here is 2 words, a place apart. And Bay St. Louis spends every second Saturday of the month proving it. when Old Town throws its monthly art walk. Galleries open late, music spills onto the sidewalks, and the golf carts, the unofficial town vehicle, drift between the shops like slow fireflies. This little Gulf city of 9,000 runs on an artist colony's metabolism. The Alice Mosley Folk Art Museum operates out of the historic train depot alongside a Mardi Gras museum. Because yes, Bay St. Louis peeps its own family-friendly walking Mardi Gras parades. Crews in beads and brass, small enough that the parade waves back at you by name. The beach is the front yard, miles of calm sand along Beach Boulevard, where the Gulf laps rather than crashes, sunset being the town's standing appointment. The food scene runs bigger than the map suggests. The Sycamore House and a strip of chef-owned rooms along the beach road draw New Orleans day trippers going the wrong direction on purpose. The old L&N train depot anchors a growing arts district, and the town's 100-plus-year-old live oaks got names and plaques. Locals will introduce you. January afternoons average in the low 60s, porch season and what the rest of the country calls deep winter. Now the history this town carries with its chin up. Hurricane Katrina's eye came ashore almost exactly here in 2005 and erased whole blocks. And what stands today, the rebuilt Old Town, the new bridge, the full marina, is one of the great small-town comebacks in America. Locals will tell you the storm sorted out who loved the place. Zillow has the typical home at $244,000, down about 1% this year. Ochsner-Hancock's hospital handles the everyday in town with Gulfport's larger systems 30 minutes east, and Coastal Insurance here is a serious line you quote before anything else. That's the entry fee the Gulf charges. What it buys is an artist town on warm sand where Mardi Gras knows your name and January wears short sleeves. The Hancock County Library and senior programming run strong for the size, and the bridge walk over the bay at sunrise has a standing cast of regulars who will absorb a newcomer in under a week. Every afternoon at 1 and 3, music falls out of the sky over Lake Wales. On the highest ground in peninsular Florida, a hill the locals grandly call Iron Mountain, stands Bach Tower, 205 feet of pink marble and coquina, finished in 1929, holding a 60-bell carillon that gives live concerts every single day. And the gardens spreading beneath it were drawn by Frederick Law Olmsted Jr., the son of the man who designed Central Park. It is, no argument accepted, one of the most beautiful places in Florida. And it belongs to a citrus town of 17,000 where the typical home costs $243,000, up 1% this year per Zillow. The town beneath the tower plays along. The historic downtown wears murals of its citrus and railroad past. Lake Wales, ringed with a walking trail, sits right against the center. And then there's Spook Hill, a street where your parked car appears to roll uphill, a gravity illusion so beloved the elementary school next door named its mascot Casper. January afternoons average around 73 degrees. Tower concerts in shirt sleeves while the Carillionaire plays Bach to the orange groves. Advent Health Lake Wales operates a full hospital right in town, and the bigger Orlando and Tampa medical worlds sit about an hour in either direction. Legoland, Florida sits 20 minutes north in Winter Haven for the grandkid card. Built on the bones of the beloved old Cypress Gardens with the historic gardens preserved inside, and the Lake Wales Ridge scrub preserves around town protect plants that exist nowhere else on Earth. Ancient island Florida from when the seas were higher, walkable on winter mornings. Quick chime before the top 8. Subscribing to this channel works like the 1 o'clock carillon. Shows up every week, costs you nothing, and sounds better the longer you sit with it. The Honest Grove Report. This is interior Florida. Summer runs hot and long. Hurricanes cross the peninsula's middle too, as this county learned in 2022, and the town itself is quiet outside the gardens. $243,000, and Bach falls out of the sky daily. That's the deal. In 1961, Elvis Presley spent 2 weeks in the Citrus County Courthouse in Inverness filming the courtroom scenes of Follow That Dream, and the town never quite got over it. The beautifully restored 1912 courthouse on the square now houses a museum where the Elvis exhibit still draws pilgrims, and the whole downtown around it has been polished into one of interior Florida's nicest small centers. Brick streets, the 1920s Valerie Theater running films and live shows again, cafes facing the old clock tower. The real amenity, though, runs on 2 wheels. The Withlacoochee State Trail, 46 paved miles, one of the longest rail trails in Florida, passes directly through town, which makes Inverness the unofficial cycling capital of the state's quiet middle. Retirees write to breakfast in the next county and call it Tuesday. Water does the rest. The town sits tangled in the Tsala Apopaca chain of lakes, thousands of acres of bass water and cypress, with the Cooter Pond Boardwalk giving downtown its own gator and heron show. The calendar stays busier than the size suggests. The Cooter Festival each fall celebrates the local turtle with a straight face and a carnival, Great American Cooter races included. The Citrus County Fair runs each spring, and the Courthouse Square hosts festivals and car shows most months. Small-town programming with a sense of humor about itself. January afternoons average around 70 degrees, trail weather all winter long. Zillow has the typical home at $242,000, down about 2% this year, a soft market in a hard-to-fall town. And HCA Florida Citrus Hospital operates right in Inverness, a full hospital walkable from the square. The Honest Odometer, this is inland Florida. Summer is 5 months of steam. The nightlife is a theater show and an early dinner, and the ocean is an hour in either direction. What you keep is a courthouse Elvis borrowed, 46 miles of car-free pavement out your door, and a 70-degree January on a bicycle. One more Inverness footnote for the water file. Fort Cooper State Park on the south edge of town wraps a clear spring-fed lake with trails and a living history weekend each spring. And the trail connects toward Floral City's Oak Tunnel, one of the prettiest canopy roads in Florida. Close enough to pedal. There's a lake in the Florida Panhandle so improbably round that surveyors keep remeasuring it. Lake DeFuniak, spring-fed, 40-some acres, one of only 2 naturally near-perfect circular lakes on Earth by the town's proud accounting. And in the 1880s, an education movement decided that Circle was destiny. The Florida Chautauqua Assembly chose this spot as its winter capital. Thousands of Victorians rode trains south each February for lectures, concerts, and self-improvement in the sunshine. And they built accordingly. A ring of gingerbread Victorian homes and the domed Hall of Brotherhood facing the water, so that today Circle Drive reads like a museum you can jog around. And the Chautauqua Revival still convenes here every winter. Talks and music in the old tradition, 140 years running. January afternoons average around 61 degrees, the exact mild winter those Victorians came for. The town's little extras add up. Britton Hill, the highest point in Florida at a mighty 345 feet, sits just north for the easiest state high point bragging rights in America. The historic Chautauqua Winery pours muscadine tastings, and the restored 1880s library on the Circle claims the title of Florida's oldest, still lending books from its original building. The modern math is friendlier than the architecture suggests. Zillow has a typical home at $236,000. Flat this year, which buys porch and turret streets at Panhandle interior prices, and the white sand of the Emerald Coast, Destin, and the storied beaches of Highway 30A sits about 40 minutes south, close enough for a Tuesday beach run, far enough to dodge every coastal premium. Healthmark Regional Medical Center operates right in town, small but real, with the bigger Fort Walton and Pensacola systems within an hour. The Honest Circle. This is a town of 6,000, where quiet is the product. The hospital is modest, and summer brings panhandle heat. What it offers is the rarest shape in Florida real estate, a Victorian lake circle built specifically for warm winters, still doing its one job a century and a half later. They call Valdosta the Azalea City, and every March the town explains why. Whole neighborhoods disappear under pink and white bloom. Drexel Park turns into a postcard, and the annual Azalea Festival fills the streets. But the smarter retirement story here is what the azaleas grow out of. A genuine small city of 56,000, with the infrastructure this whole countdown keeps hunting for. Start with the hospital. South Georgia Medical Center is the regional referral hub for a 15-county corner of 2 states. Hundreds of beds, heart and cancer programs, the kind of medical muscle most towns on this list borrow from a city an hour away, sitting right here. At Valdosta State University, 12,000 students keeping concerts, lectures, and ball games on the calendar, and 3 separate historic districts on the National Register, shading Victorian and Craftsman streets under live oaks. Add the grandkid card. Wild Adventurous Theme Park on the edge of town runs coasters, a water park, and a safari's worth of animals, which makes your house the summer destination without a Disney invoice. Grand Bay's wildlife management area north of town lays boardwalks through one of Georgia's biggest blackwater swamps, an observation tower over the Cypress, and the downtown Turner Center for the Arts keeps galleries and classes running year-round in a row of restored storefronts. And Friday nights in fall belong to high school football, played at a level this town treats as civic religion. The winningest program in America plays here, and the whole city shows up. January afternoons average around 63 degrees. Camellias out, azaleas loading. Zillow has a typical home at $215,000, up 3.5% this year, the strongest gain on this countdown. Town's momentum showing. The honest interstate, Valdosta straddles I-75, so through traffic hums. Summer is South Georgia summer, and the ocean is 90 minutes east. What 215,000 buys is a real city services in azalea packaging, with the best hospital per dollar ratio on this entire list. And when the ocean itch does hit, Fernandina Beach and the Jacksonville coast make an easy day loop east, while Tallahassee's capital city calendar sits 90 minutes west, Valdosta holding the warm middle of everything. The ruby red grapefruit, the one that made Texas citrus famous, was discovered in an orchard in Mission in 1929, a single blushy mutation on one tree, and the town has thrown the Texas Citrus Fiesta every winter since 1932. A parade with floats, dressed entirely in citrus peel and seeds, product costumes, a royal court, all of it in late January, because late January here is parade weather, afternoons around 70 degrees in the deepest pocket of South Texas. That's Mission's opening argument, and the closing one has wings. The National Butterfly Center on the edge of town holds the greatest concentration of wild butterflies in the United States, 200+ species drifting through native gardens with peak season running through the cool months, and the World Birding Center headquarters sits at Benson Rio Grande Valley State Park just south, where green jays and chachalakas, birds that exist nowhere else in America north of the border, mob the feeders every morning winter. This is also the capital of an entire migratory human culture, the Winter Texans, tens of thousands of northerners who fill the valley's resorts every November through March, running dance calendars, pickleball ligas, and potlucks at a density that makes January the most social month of the year. Tom Landry grew up here too. The town will mention it within the hour. The lower Rio Grande Valley Wildlife Corridor threads through the area, with morning walks at Santa Ana Refuge 20 minutes east, the La Lomita Chapel south of town, a tiny 1899 mission that gave the town its name, still holds services in its original adobe, and the winter farmers markets overflow with valley citrus, avocados, and tamales that ruin the supermarket kind forever. Zillow has the typical home at $221,000, flat this year, and Mission Regional Medical Center operates right in town. Quick flutter before the top 4. Subscribing works like the Butterfly Garden, costs nothing to visit, and something new lands every single week. The Honest Row of the Orchard, summer runs past 100 degrees for weeks, the coast is an hour, and San Antonio is a 4-hour drive. What stays is a 70-degree January with parades, butterflies, and grapefruit picked from your own yard. There's a place in the Texas desert where scuba divers descend through water so clear they can read the year on a submerged ranch gate. Lake Amistad, 65,000 acres of turquoise reservoir where the Rio Grande and 2 desert rivers back up behind one of the great binational dams, sits at the edge of Del Rio, and it rewrites everything you assume about West Texas. World-class bath fishing, houseboat weekends, canyon arms winding for miles, and yes, the clearest diving in the state, in a county that gets 300 days of sun. The town beneath the lake runs on older water. San Felipe Springs pours out 90 million gallons a day, one of the biggest spring systems in Texas, watering a green belt of pecans and parkland through the middle of the desert town, with a spring-fed swimming spot locals have used for a century. History piles deep here. The Whitehead Memorial Museum keeps the story of Judge Roy Bean. The law west of the Pecos, and 40 minutes upriver, Seminole Canyon shelters 4,000-year-old rock art, including the White Shaman mural, one of the oldest surviving paintings in North America, tour visitable on a winter morning when the canyon is 63 degrees and empty. Across the border sits Ciudad Acuña and the easy international air and culture the border towns share, while on this side, the Brinkley Mansion recalls the strangest radio empire in American history, built on a 1,000,000-watt border blaster station, a story your Del Rio neighbors will happily tell in full. Laughlin Air Force Base anchors the economy and salts the town with retired pilots who never left. Zillow has the typical home at $212,000, down 3.6% this year, a soft market on a permanent lake. Valverde Regional Medical Center operates right in town. The honest mile marker, Del Rio is genuinely remote. San Antonio sits 2.5 hours east, summer is a desert furnace, and quiet is the default setting. The trade is a turquoise lake, a spring-fed oasis, and cave paintings older than the pyramids, all in shirt-sleeve January weather. And for the fishing file specifically, Amistad's bass tournaments draw national circuits through the cool months. The lake record book reads like a brag sheet, and the marina rents pontoons by the day, which turns any grandkid visit into an instant expedition. The bronze figures raising the flag at Iwo Jima, the most famous war memorial post in American history, were cast from a working model, and that original full-size model stands not in Washington but in Harlingen, Texas, on the parade ground of the Marine Military Academy, where the sculptor gifted it, and where a visiting veteran can stand beneath the actual 100-foot original on a 70-degree January morning. That's the kind of town Harlingen is, unglamorous, deeply American, and holding better cards than its name recognition suggests, starting with the number. Zillow has the typical home at $199,000, up close to 2% this year, the only sub-$200,000 address on this entire countdown, in the Rio Grande Valley where January afternoons average 71 degrees, statistically among the warmest winters in the continental United States. The birding is world-class here too. Harlingen anchors its own World Birding Center site at Hugh Ramsey Nature Park, ringed kingfishers and green jays in the ebony woods, and the town's Arroyo Trail system threads it all together for winter cyclists. Downtown's Jackson Street Antique District and a growing mural trail handle the strolling. The Winter Texan social calendar handles everything else, and Valley Baptist Medical Center handles the serious file, a genuinely large regional hospital, hundreds of beds, right in town, with South Padre Island sand 45 minutes east for the grandkid weekends. Each November, the Rio Grande Valley Birding Festival, one of the biggest in the nation, headquarters right here and fills the town with binoculars and field trips, and the historic Rialto District's restored theater marquee anchors a downtown that's been steadily repainting itself mural by mural. The honest ledger, Valley summers are long and fierce. The local economy runs modest, which is exactly why the price does too, and big city amenities mean a Valley drive. What $199 buys here is the warmest affordable winter in America, with a major hospital and the flag still going up every morning. The center of Ajo, Arizona looks like it was airlifted from Andalusia, a formal Spanish colonial plaza. White stucco arcades are on the palm-shaded green, twin white churches gleaming against desert mountains. All of it built in 1917 by a copper company that decided its mining town deserved beauty. For decades, Ajo ran on the New Cornelia mine, the enormous terraced pit at the edge of town, and when the copper stopped in 1985, the town of 3,000 should have blown away. Instead, something quietly remarkable happened. The magnificent 1919 Curly School Spanish Revival, big as a castle, was restored into affordable artist lots and studios, a deliberate bet that creative people would trade winter for beauty. And it worked. Ajo today runs a real gallery scene, murals climbing the alley walls, an international arts program in the old schoolhouse, and the Plaza Farmers Market under the arcades. The number is the stunner. Zillow has a typical Ajo home at $135,000, up close to 2% this year, the cheapest address on this entire countdown by $60,000. For a plaza town where January afternoons average 68 degrees and the stars at night look sprayed on, this is certified dark sky country, with Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument, the only place in America where that cactus grows wild, half an hour south. The winter calendar carries real weight for a town this size. A sunset celebration on the plaza, art walks through the alley murals, and the Sonoran Shindig Festival each spring, while the scenic loop drive around the old mine and out through the Sawado country gives every visitor the same first impression, this belief at the price of paradise with cactus. Now the honest desert, and it's a big one. Ajo has a community health clinic for the everyday, but the nearest full hospitals are up in the Phoenix corridor or over in Yuma, roughly 2 hours either way, and that distance is the real price of the $135,000 plaza. Summer is Sonoran furnace. Remote is the whole point and the whole problem. For the healthy retiree chasing beauty on the smallest budget in this video though, nothing else comes close. A copper company built a Spanish dream in the desert, and now costs less than a pickup truck with options. There's exactly one city on this planet holding the Guinness World Record for sunshine, and it's Yuma, Arizona. Sun during more than 90% of all daylight hours, roughly 4,000 hours of it a year, a number no other measured place on Earth beats, which makes Yuma, by the book this entire video has been playing from, the literal world capital of winter never coming. January afternoons average around 70 degrees, and the town's whole economy is built on that fact twice over. First, the snowbirds. Every winter, tens of thousands of northerners pour into Yuma and nearly double the population, filling resorts, dance halls, pickleball courts, and swap meets from November through March. An annual migration so established that winter here is the loud season, the social season, the season everything opens. Second, your salad, the winter vegetables of America. The vast majority of the lettuce and leafy greens the whole country eats from Thanksgiving to Easter grow in the irrigated fields around Yuma. So when you eat a salad in January, odds are overwhelming it was cut within sight of this town. They even celebrate it with lettuce festivals and field-to-feast dinners in the growing season, which is, naturally, winter. The Colorado River built the rest. Yuma Crossing was the river's great historic ford. The 1876 territorial prison on the bluff is now the state's most storied historic park. The restored east wetlands put herons and cottonwoods back along the riverbank, and the ocean-to-ocean bridge still carries traffic where the whole Southwest once funneled. Medjool dates grow in groves around town, and the date shake is the official local food group. Now the practical spine, and it's the strongest on this list. Yuma Regional Medical Center is a full-scale hospital with hundreds of beds, the medical anchor for the entire corner where Arizona, California, and Mexico meet, and the Marine Corps Air Station plus the Army Proving Ground salt the town with veterans who retired here on purpose. Zillow has a typical home at $284,000, essentially flat this year and going pending in around 12 days. The fastest market on this countdown, demand doing the talking. Look back down the list and Yuma is quietly the whole thesis at record scale. Mission and Harlingen run warm winters. Yuma holds the certificate. Crystal River Springs stays 72 degrees. Yuma's entire January does. Mount Dora throws festivals in February. Yuma doubles its population for the season. The honest ledger is one word long: summer. June through September, this is one of the hottest inhabited places in America. 107-degree afternoons are routine, and full-time residents plan life around it the way Minnesotans plan around February. But the question this video asked was where winter never comes. Guinness already measured the answer. 4,000 hours of sunshine, a 70-degree January, a 400-bed hospital, and the nation's salad growing outside town. Winter doesn't skip Yuma. Winter has simply never heard of it. 20 towns, one map, and you've probably noticed the shape of it. A warm arc running from the Florida lakes through the Gulf Coast to the Texas Valley and the Arizona desert. The geography where January forgot its job, and every town on it paid for that January the same way, with July. That's the honest trade this whole video rests on. The winter you're escaping gets exchanged for a summer that means it. So here's advice you won't hear from a brochure. Visit in August, not February. February will seduce you anywhere on this list. August tells the truth. And if you can make peace with a town in August, its January is yours forever. Everything else stays standard issue. Prices and insurance change monthly. Hurricanes and heat are real planning items. Hospitals were named for a reason. Verify all of it fresh before you move a single box. And tell me down in the comments below, Which January would you take? The Manatee Springs, the Butterfly Gardens, the Citrus Parade, or the World Record Sunshine? And which warm town did I miss? Because that answer becomes a future video. If this saved you a winter of research, subscribe. Every number in every video gets pulled fresh the very week it airs. Now go put the ice scraper somewhere you'll never need it again.